Hello everyone, my name is Anderson. How are you doing? Okay, welcome back to the second part of the lesson about the phrases of giving advice. We're going to carry on the lesson about the phrases of giving advice. So, before we move on to the main lesson, we're going to review what we learned from the previous video. So, what does giving advice mean? And how do we use it? And why do we use it? So, we give a piece of advice to someone else who is having a difficult time. So we can tell a lot of difficult time, like someone who is having a difficult time about family, friends, study, career, and we give a piece of advice to someone, and it is really useful for your lives and for your daily lives. It's really good to build a really good relationship, any kind of relationship that you can have. um, in the previous video we learned the phrase should when we give advice, and this lesson we're going to cover if I were you phrase. If I were you phrase a bit difficult, but we can handle it, so don't worry. Don't worry. So from now on, let's move on, shall we? Good. So, we use if I were you phrase when you give a piece of advice, when you want to imagine that you're in the same position as the person you're talking to. So, if I were you phrase is like, so this person B wants to give an advice to person A, but in order to make a good advice for A, this person B imagine being an A and do something for a good purpose. So we use if I were you phrase. You don't understand? That's fine. Let me explain you in a different way. So for 5 seconds, let's imagine your favorite character. I can imagine Leonardo DiCaprio or Tom Cruise or Marion Cotillard, etc. So, what if you could become your favorite actor or actress, and what would you do? So, if I were a famous actor, you just imagine being Tom Cruise, and what would you do if you were Tom Cruise? If I were Tom Cruise, I would have a big house. I would have a big house if I were a Tom Cruise. So we have to just imagine ourselves. We have just imagine ourselves being your favorite actor or actress, and do something as your favorite actor or actress. What would you do? I would have a big house like this. So this imagination can be used for advising for someone who is having a hard and difficult time. So again, we use this phrase when you give a piece of advice, imagining that you're in a same position as the person you're talking to. If I were this person B, I would do blah 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 blah, like this. So we have just learned how do we use it and why do we use it. So we use if I were you, I would, this phrase to give an advice. So you think being himself or herself and give a and I would do if I were you, stuff like that. So you just be themselves, you just be him, you just be her, like that, and you do for the good purpose, anyways. So how do we form the sentence? If I were you, I would this one. So if I were the person you're talking to, person B or Tom, any kind of name, first and then I would give an advice. So imagine I am B and I'm talking to C. So I want to give an advice to C to wear a coat. Then how should I make a sentence with using if I were you, I would stuff blah blah blah. Okay, the sentence would be sorry about that. The sentence would be if I were B, the person you're talking to, I would wear a coat. So B is the person you're talking to, and no, C. I mean, so C is the person you're talking to, and you are B, and you like to give an advice to wear a coat. So if I were C, I would wear a coat. You're just imagining you are C. You're the person you're talking to, and what would you do if I were C? Like that. Can you get it? Okay, let's practice. It's fine. You don't have to understand everything. So we have a situation here. So maybe they're in school, right? Ariana, she said, "Oh, I'm going to the concert tonight." Like she seems so excited, right? Yeah. I'm going to the concert tonight. But suddenly, her friend, Jack, comes right to him, comes right to her, and Jack wants to say something. So, Jack wants to say something about bus. And Jack wants to give an advice that Ariana needs to take a bus to the concert. So, right now, Jack is imagining himself being an Ariana, right? Being an Ariana, and if I were Ariana, I would take a bus. Jack just imagined himself being Ariana. And if Jack was Ariana, he would take a bus. Then let's have a look at the example. If I were Ariana, Jack is imagining right now, Ariana, I'll take a bus. This is the advice. Right? So, Ariana is the person who Jack is talking to. And Jack wants to give an advice about the concert. So Jack is imagining himself being Ariana, and Jack would take a bus if he were Ariana. Okay, next example. So Kate and her friend is talking, and Kate said, "I like this clothes. I'll buy it." And friend said, "Why don't you look for another one?" So Kate said, I like this clothes and I'll buy it. But the friend said, why don't you look for another one? Sounds like an advice, right? So, friend wants to give an advice to Kate. Then, friends needs to imagine that the friend is Kate, and if the friend was Kate, the friend would do like this. The friend would look for another one. So how can we form the sentence, huh? So if I were the person who you are talking to, maybe Kate, and I would look for another one. This would be the answer, right? So if I were Kate, I would look for another one. So this is the person who the friend is talking to, and look for another one is a piece of advice for Kate. It's the best advice for Kate. Look for another one. Yeah, very good. So let's have a look at the another example. Before that, we need to know that this sentence can be reversible. So, like this. I would look for another one if I were Kate. So we can change the order without changing anything. So, like this, I would look for another one if I were Kate. If you change the order of the phrase, don't worry. You can say like this, I would look for another one. So the friend is giving her advice for Kate. So I would look for another one. Advice if I were Kate. So Kate is the person you're talking to, and then the friend is giving advice. I would look for another one, Kate, like this. So very good. So let's move on to the next example. James. James is worrying about something, and James said, I'm not sure if I can pass this test. James is worrying. James is concerning about the result. I'm not sure if I can pass this test. In response to that, James' friend said, why don't you just calm down? It's fine, it's fine. James' friend is calming James down a bit. So right now in this situation, James' friend is giving a piece of advice to James because James is having a hard time right now. So James' friend is a person who's giving advice, and James would be the recipient, right? So if I were the person you're talking to, and if I were James, I would. How can we do? Where's the advice? Just calm down. So let me write it here. If I were James, I would just calm down like this. Okay? If I were James, I would just calm down. If I were James, the person you're talking to, I would give an advice, would just calm down. Let's see. Like this. If I were James, I would just calm down. If I were James, if I were you, I would just calm down like this. Okay, very good. As well as this sentence, this sentence can also be reversed. So I would just calm down. If I were James like this, we can change the order without changing anything. Like this, I would just calm down if I were James. So, anyways, we have 1 point to just pinpoint here. So, do you remember this one? I should not. And do you remember we can make it a bit short like this? I shouldn't. Like this. I shouldn't. I shouldn't. Well, same as here. I would. We can make it a bit short. So we can say I'd. I just calm down. I'll just calm down. I just calm down if I were James. I'll just calm down. Calm down if I were James like this. We can make it a bit short. Okay. Let's move on to the negative as well. We give a piece of advice that it is the best not to do it. So we're giving advice to not to do it because it is bad. So we know it. So we're giving an advice for them before they make a trouble. So we say, if I were you, I would not. If I were you, I would not. So we add not in front of the would. If I were you, I would not. So we also can say wouldn't. Okay, follow me. I wouldn't. Very good. We give a piece of advice that is the best not to do it, which means don't do it. Don't do it. Okay, then how do we form the sentence here? Like this. It's pretty same. So if I were the person you're talking to, I would not. We just add not advice. Okay? So we just add not to show some negative in that advice. Okay, let's move on to the example. Jennifer eats a lot of chocolate. Jennifer eats a lot of chocolate. So, I think we can find out that she's a mom. So she wants to say, do not eat too much chocolate. Do not eat too much chocolate. So I think she wants to give an advice to Jennifer not to eat a lot of chocolate, right? So then how do we form the sentence, everyone? How do we form the sentence? Yes, so if I were Jennifer, I would eat a lot of chocolate? No, she wants to say do not eat a lot of chocolate. That we need to add not and advice. I would not eat a lot of chocolate. Let's see the answers here. Like this. Very good. If I were Jennifer, so she has just imagined herself being Jennifer. It is the best not to do it. So if I were Jennifer, I would not eat a lot of chocolate. This is the advice, everyone, right? So if I were Jennifer, I would not eat a lot of chocolate. Very good. So, as I have told you guys before, it can be changed. It can be reversed as well. So I would not eat a lot of chocolate if I were Jennifer. So come on here. So we can change the order without changing anything. I would not eat a lot of chocolate if I were Jennifer. Like this. Very good. And now let's have a look at the last example. So do not smoke cigarettes to miss the doctor. The doctor wants to say do not smoke cigarettes. However, James smokes a lot of cigarettes. and doctor wants to give an advice, a piece of advice to Mr. James. So then how do we form the sentence here? So if I were, she wants to give an advice, then we should put James. If I were James. If I were James. She has just imagined herself being James, and she thought, if I were James, I would not blah 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 advice. Then what kind of advice would it be? So if I were James, I would not smoke a lot of cigarettes. Okay. Oh, teacher, I have an advice. Yes. You said smokes, right? But why smoke, the verb, doesn't have any s or es or ies? Why this verb remains the same as a base form? Great point. Because of this, would. Do you remember? Would is like the helping verb, as I have mentioned from the previous video about should. So it's pretty same. It's a helping verb. So when there's a helping verb in front of the verb, we don't have to put es or ies, stuff like that. We just go with the base form of the verb. So that's why we didn't put smokes or smoking. So let me read the sentence for you again. If I were James, I would not smoke cigarettes. I would not smoke cigarettes like this. Okay, very good job. So now is the quiz time, and go back to the website and let's solve the quiz together. Okay, thank you very much, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.